11, первой пусковой установкой.
If one system is destroyed, it can be called an incident. If two systems are destroyed, it may still be described as enemy luck. But when the same outcome appears repeatedly, at consistent intervals, across different locations, against similar categories of targets, simple explanations no longer suffice. At that point, analysis must stop focusing on events and start examining patterns. Because modern warfare does not move through isolated moments, but through trends. And within that trend, the same name keeps appearing. Not as an opening move, not as a dramatic surprise, but as the conclusion, Iskander. Not because it is always used, but because it is used when the variables are already calculated. Many analyses of modern conflict fail not due to lack of data, but because their analytical framework belongs to a previous era. War is still interpreted as a contest of sophistication. Who has the newest technology? Who fields the most advanced system? Who appears most futuristic? Yet today's battlefield resembles an industrial system more than a technological duel. What is being tested is not only weapon performance, but process endurance. Not who strikes hardest once, but who can strike with consistent rhythm over extended time. In this context, temporary technical superiority does not necessarily translate into strategic advantage. The central question changes. Not who is more advanced, but who collapses later. No missile arrives by chance. Every strike is the endpoint of a long decision chain: initial detection, signal filtering, target classification, value validation, timing selection. This is where many systems fail before kinetic engagement even begins. Because they remain visible for too long. Because their operational behavior becomes predictable. Iskander does not shorten this chain. It waits for it to mature. It is not a reaction weapon. It is a conclusion weapon. Employed when uncertainty has already been reduced to an acceptable minimum. In prolonged warfare, patience often outweighs speed. And the critical question becomes simple. Who can wait longer without making a mistake? Iskander is frequently described as non-revolutionary, not the newest, not the most futuristic. That assessment is accurate, but wars of attrition do not demand revolution. They demand continuity. Systems that can be produced without major disruption, stored, integrated, and employed without extreme dependency chains. In this sense, Iskander is not a symbol of technological dominance, but of design philosophy. A philosophy where sufficient is more dangerous than perfect. The relevant question is not how advanced the system appears today. It is whether the system remains available 2 years from now, 3 years from now. In prolonged war, time itself becomes a weapon.
Пуск проведен, расход 1.
Air defense systems are designed to create security. But to function, they must remain active, and every active system leaves a signature. Radars emit, command networks communicate, sensors synchronize. Each action produces traceable signals. The S-300 does not fail because of flawed engineering. It performs as designed. The issue is that its function now constitutes its vulnerability. In sensor-saturated environments, protection often transforms into exposure. The critical question is not whether such systems are technically capable. It is how long they can survive before their presence itself becomes the risk. HIMARS represents a high-value asset, limited in number, operationally impactful, strategically significant. Traditional logic dictates that high-value assets must be protected, but in modern warfare, protection creates structure. Structure produces routine. Routine produces patterns, movement patterns, security patterns, emission patterns. The question is therefore not whether HIMARS is protected. It is whether that protection makes its presence more predictable. In this context, defensive measures may shift roles, from shield to marker. Modern military assistance is not limited to hardware delivery. It is an ecosystem. Layered sensors, air dominance, real-time integration, spectrum control. In proxy warfare, not all of these layers can be transferred, not due to unwillingness, but due to structural constraints. Systems designed to operate within a fully integrated environment face inherent challenges when isolated from it. The rarely asked question is this: how effective does a system remain when it must function on its own? History consistently shows that prolonged wars are decided by rhythm, not by peak sophistication, but by stability, sustained production, rapid replacement, continuous pressure. Iskander was not designed for a single decisive moment. It was designed to appear repeatedly. In wars of attrition, recurrent pressure is more destructive than isolated spectacle. This is where many analyses falter. They search for dramatic events, while war advances through routine. What we are observing today is not the endpoint of warfare evolution. It is an intermediary phase, a period in which technical superiority is increasingly challenged by systemic endurance. The question is not whether Iskander will remain relevant. The question is, what model of warfare is taking shape before us, and what lessons should be extracted from it? At this point, agreement is not required. Open analysis is. If you observe similar patterns, if you interpret the data differently, if you hold questions about how modern warfare actually functions, this is the space for discussion. If this analysis proves valuable, consider supporting the channel by subscribing, by sharing, or by participating in informed, critical dialogue. And finally, a clarification. This content is analytical, not promotional, not justificatory, not prescriptive. Its purpose is to understand mechanisms, not to assign moral judgment. Because in modern warfare, the most dangerous factor is not the weapon. It is misunderstanding how the war itself operates.